G'day and welcome back to the channel. On this episode, we are finishing the wiring inside the Black Mosquito. We're going to turn the key and hopefully this episode, the car will actually do what it's meant to when we turn everything on. Let's roll the intro and get straight into it. So the awkward moment when you're running the wiring, thinking you're doing it correct, you start running it all the way through, and then you realize, hang on a minute, this doesn't seem to be right. Am I doing the right way? Before I proceed any further, let's message your customer. I did, and this is what he wrote back with. Hey Tomo, I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. Here's some photos, good luck with it. Okay, not a problem. This is the photo in which he sent me, which I'll bring up on the screen in just 1 second. But this is it here. And it is not exactly how it's supposed to go. So essentially where it runs through the dash, it doesn't run through those two holes that are off to the side. That is only for the AC lines. And where it actually goes, I'll just grab the camera now and I'll show you guys. It runs through the sensor part of the dash. So where they would run the steel bar from the front of the car, so this bit here all the way down the back, and as you can see there, that one's actually been filled in. So it actually runs up the top through here and then comes out and across and then down. These two holes here, they're for the air conditioning, so for the the evaporator lines that come out through there. So I need to pull that back through and then reroute it up through there. So these are the sort of challenges that you run into when you're doing this sort of job, especially when you haven't done it before, or you've you know, putting together something that someone else has pulled apart. This is what makes these sort of jobs quite interesting, but also gives you the best sort of learning experience, in my professional opinion anyway. And this is a really good job that, you know, if you're doing it yourself and you pull everything apart, it is imperative to make sure that you take as many photos as possible, because if you don't, you're going to get called out rather quickly. But good thing I've only just fed it through, so let's pull that back out. Let's reroute it the correct way and keep going with this build. So the next part of it is going to be installing the dash cluster. Now, you're probably wondering, like, why we're installing this now when we have to test it all. Simply because I was going to put the cluster just sitting up here, but then I figured, well, it's going to have to sit on here. This is freshly painted. We're not actually going to be running any rails over the top here. So I figured, well, we might as well put it in properly and at least just have it in there loose. And by loose, I mean fit the support bracket around here with a couple of new nuts and washers, and then just screw it in by hand. The car's not going to go anywhere, so it's not like we have to worry about it falling out or anything. But essentially we have this bracket here, which is what mounts it to the firewall itself. Now there are 4 bolt holes, which you'll see in a second, in which it needs to line up with. So once you've got it lined up, it'll pretty much just sit directly in there. With little to no ease. Sometimes there is a little bit of contortion needing to happen to be able to get it in, just depending if there's any damage to the original support bracket, or if there's any paint in the way. In this case, yeah, there we go. Just need a little bit of persuasion, but that'll just push straight in. So essentially, we're going to put a nut on either end, just over here at the top, 2 at the top and then 2 at the bottom. Once that's in, we can then route the wiring up behind it and start plugging everything in. And that way it's just going to be able to sit there and it's not going to be able to go anywhere, especially if we're going to be in here pulling stuff around. And it's really important in this instance to be able to mock everything up, because if we don't, then we don't know where half these harnesses go. Like, we've got a lot of them obviously taped and labeled, but we need to make sure that anything that's getting mounted under here can get at least mounted or seated in its right position. So that way we can go and test everything when the car then eventually has power. So we know that everything's gonna work. If I were to do so and putting it all back together, like I said before, you're just gonna run into problem after problem, and it's just gonna be this massive effort to be able to pull the entire car back apart. So Tomo's tech tip is before you reassemble it, make sure you test it. All right, so I don't actually have 2 new nuts for it, so I'm gonna have to order some from Minisport. That way they're matching. I've just got an old one and a new one. So the new one is just down here, but it's gold. I just got that from Bunnings just to be able to get us by. And the other one will just sit behind where the clutch master cylinder is at the moment, just to be able to hold in there. You don't need them super tight at the moment, just to be able to hold it there to stop it rattling around. We're just going to route the wiring underneath the back of the bracket, so it's just coming up through the middle here. That way we can plug it in. I'm pretty certain dash connections. Okay, so one's round, one's a bullet connector. I'm not entirely sure where these go. I think they might go to the back of the tacho, I think. I'm not entirely sure. Actually, I've just worked out, this one's the tacho. So one will be the bullet connector. The other one will be a spade terminal. Oh, there we go. All right, so before we go further, just have to take this tape off the back. That's gonna go in the back of the dash. So on the Clubman style dash, or the later style, it's got this rather large connector. Oh. All right, there we are. Now as well, this looks like it only goes in one way to the back of the dash, so you just have to make sure that you fit it the correct way. It should have a little groove. Oh no, maybe it does go either way, but we'll soon find out if it is gonna work or not, that's for sure. So it is a bit hard to see, but essentially just lean it forward and then just plug it straight into the back. See if it'll go that way. If it doesn't want to go, don't force it. There we go. Yep, so it does only go in one way. Fabulous. And then we have our 2 connections as well. So this one is labeled dash connections, which is going to go over to the opposite side of the dash. So we have our female connector, bang, and a male connector, that's for the tacho. If it goes on, because it was pretty stiff. All right. Now there are 2 extra wires, not entirely sure where those go. Can't see any extra plugs. We do have the Speedo cable as well, which will obviously go in a bit later. If anyone knows what these are, please let me know, because I don't exactly know what they are. And we can probably just sit that in and around here. Hopefully that should, yeah, hold itself. That'll be fine there. All right, we might start mounting the heater box itself. That way we can start working out exactly what it is under here we need to be able to put in to get stuff wired up and ready for when we not so much turn the key to start it, but turn the key to test it all and make sure everything works. All right, so the fun part of putting this car back together is putting it back together with no instructions, no video, and minimal help to be able to work this thing out. Now, don't get me wrong, I certainly enjoy this sort of stuff, but it's like building a jigsaw puzzle with a heap of pieces in the dark, no light and no instructions. So I've got a heap of parts here. I've literally just pulled the blower assembly out. That's must be for the AC. And then this one must be the heater. Oh, okay, so these don't actually run a heater and evaporator as one. They run 2 separate units by the look of it. Interesting way to do it, but you know, technology's obviously come quite a long way. Now at the back, there are 2, I guess, wing nut bolts. They go onto the firewall, so anyone that has a heater knows where these goes. If you don't, they do just go at the back, so we're just going to loosen those off. I think from memory they just clip over the back 2 little brackets, so there's 2 here. You might just be able to see. I'll try and get my fingers in there. So that one there and that one over there, that'll clip in. So we should be able to probably fit the top first, I'm hoping, and then the back. So my apprentice Kev is off today. He had to work. That must suck. Okay, so there's a harness there. Sorry, there's a harness bracket just here. I don't know which way that goes. I'll just bend it up, I think. Work out where that harness goes, if it does go in the back there. That one's there. And that one's the back. Alright. So now by the look of it, there should be two screws that'll line it up under here where it needs to go. I just wonder if it needs to come this way a bit more. Yeah, okay. Oh, I see what it needs to do. So there's two Phillips heads that hold it on down under there. Just gonna grab my electric ratchet. This will make it a hell of a lot easier. Get rid of that AC unit for a second. Once again, as you can see, I'm in with no shoes on. That's just to make sure that I don't dirty the car any more than what it currently is. That way, I'm not going to be trampling footprints all through there and dirt from the shed. All right, I don't think that's the right screw. That thing is about 2 inches long and is the biggest overkill screw to hold up an AC unit, but I'd say the customers probably just use it just to make sure that you get any paint inside where the screw needs to go. Yeah, okay. Oh, all right. So we have some connectors. So now we need to work out where that wiring is going to go. Oh. And as I said, it's literally just going to be one of those cases we just have to work it out and just try and marry up some of these parts and switches and all this jazz. This one as well. So middle floor console, not sure what that is. There is, I think there was only 2 wires that came off that, yeah. So just for the blower itself. And then obviously you have your direction flap as well. And then you got the on and off switch. So we'll just go through, work out some of this wiring, work out where that needs to go. But actually before we do, we now need to mount the matrix. By that I mean this sucker just here. Now I don't even know where this thing goes, and I really wonder if it goes up under the dash rail just here. I honestly have no clue about this thing. Well, I'm missing some bolts, so I'm just going to put some more back in there just to get it sorted. There's no brackets that really say that it does. The 2 pipes for it, so the evaporator pipes run up through the top here, like we found out incorrectly before. I'm just not entirely sure how this thing mounts or where it mounts. It's got to mount over here somewhere. When you're doing this sort of stuff, it's important just to make sure you just sit there and try and work it out before you just go mount stuff. If you have a bit of an idea, awesome. Good thing about today's day and age, I guess, the 21st, 22nd century, whatever it is that we have things like Facebook and Instagram and Google. And you could literally just Google what it is, where it goes, and then backtrack it from there. Really handy thing I find is just taking off brackets or attachments and just placing it up under different components. Just kind of getting a bit of an idea as to where it's going to sit. And that'll give you an idea as to whether you're in the right place or the wrong place. I'm really quite confused about this. It definitely has to mount something along these lines, like it needs to mount from the top and then have it hanging underneath. So I might actually put this on Instagram and see if anyone knows where this thing goes, because I just cannot for the life of me work it out where it's got to go, where it's got to sit. to be able to properly mount. And the fact I've never seen one of these before in my life, well, if I have, then I haven't paid enough attention, but I can't work this out. So, quick intermission. Let's work out where this goes and let's keep chugging along. All right, so I put the call out on Instagram and we worked out how this bracket went. Essentially, down underneath this bracket here, so the front fascia, there's a couple of bolt holes at the back, so towards the firewall side along the flat. Up under here, just under the lip, are a couple of holes in which this is going to be mounting up through here. So, essentially what we're going to be doing is remounting it to the existing holes. So as you can see here, there are some witness marks. There are 4 holes, and it can obviously mount on either one of these depending what the vehicle is and how it's designed to be set up. So this one's going to go up under here, I believe. Yeah, like this. So it is a little bit offset compared to being completely straight. I'm not sure why it runs, well, I'm not sure why it runs that way, or was it this way? Let's have a look. Ah, that looks better. Yeah, cool. Not sure why it runs 2 separate boxes, one for the heater, so the heater is actually this one, and the AC is this one. In most modern cars, they are combined in one setup, so you'll have both the heater and the AC matrix as one, but obviously with the Mini, they decided to run it 2 separate, so this poor bastard over here gets freezing cold legs, and that guy over there gets boiling hot legs. So, you know, I'm sure with a mix of both, it's probably pretty good, and it's only a very small space as well, and when it's well insulated, I'm sure it is quite cool. So I'd love to hear from people who have a Mini. It might be a JDM Mini or aftermarket, in a early model Morris or a Rover, whatever it may be, and just let us know in the comments, what's it like with AC? Does it do a good job? Does it work? Do you need it? Really good to know. So essentially, once that bracket's in, we've got a couple of bolts here. We're just going to mount this up here, but before we do, there is just 2 plugs under here, so we've got to make sure that we connect those as well, but we can do that once we've mounted it. So it looks like it sits on a bit of an angle just here. There are 4 bolt holes, 2 on either side. We're just going to stick 2 bolts in for now. There's no real point mounting it all. Like I said, we just want to be mounting everything just to make sure that when we turn the key, that it all works and we can test it. So that way, if it's going to fail, we can ensure that we can fix any problems before we reassemble the entire vehicle. The great thing about working on Minis is everything's small and fiddly, especially this sort of stuff once you start putting it all together. But the simplicity of it as well is great. All right, so that's in, that's mounted, that's obviously adjustable as well, so you could probably adjust where this sits, so whether it faces up or blows up the skirt of the person sitting beside you. That we need to work out where that goes as well. I've got Kev here now, so he's going to help me keep going with the wiring. We're just going to work through, probably start with the brake light switch on that side, work our way backwards, start connecting all this, and then looking at some of these connectors. So let's jump into it. Alright folks, so welcome back. It has been a few days between when I filmed that last part of this episode and now. Essentially what we're going to be doing is rewiring the side repeater indicator wiring harnesses. The reason for that is we're going to be running Deutsch connectors. So as you saw on the back of the Black Mosquito, we converted it over from the standard bullet type to a Deutsch connector. As I said, like, it is a very good, easy alternative to do, and something you can just upgrade, and it remains completely watertight, it's sealed, and it'll just last so much longer than the standard ones, in my professional opinion. So we're going to go through this, and I'm going to show you guys how to do it. In this case, we only obviously need a 2-pin Deutsch connector. They do come in different varieties, whether it be 2, 4, 6, or even bigger. So make sure you get the right one to suit the application. All right, so I bought these from J-Car. They're just a local electronic shop down the road from where I work. It does come with a few different things. So they do come with terminals, which is fabulous. They come with a couple of seals and 2 plugs, as well as the locking tabs. So essentially we have male and female pins, which obviously male goes in the female, clips in, and away we go. So in one side we're going to be putting the male, the other side we're going to be putting the female. Now it does matter which side has which fitting. So generally the male side is the one without the plug on the side. Now the plug, I mean the release plug. The release plug is where we're going to be having the females on this end, and the male is going to be on this end. So the male is going to go on the bigger end, the female is going to go on the smaller end. Not sure if you can see, but it is a standard style fitting for a wiring harness. So essentially we're going to be stripping the wires back, which these already appear to be. It is going to be sitting in there essentially just like that. We're then going to clamp it onto there. You can also solder it to make sure it's got an even better permanent connection, but in our case, well, I guess we might as well, there's no point not. Putting it in there, soldering it on, tightening up, and then fitting it inside the connector, and then I'll show you guys how to do it. All right, so first thing you need is a set of wire strippers. We're just going to strip it back about 1 centimeter. These aren't the best strippers, but they'll do for the application we're doing. So you want to strip back both wires to be about the same. Oh my goodness, I need to throw these in the bin. This is a free set that I got from one of the boys at work. I sometimes use them, but I obviously haven't in a while. So we're just going to twist the terminals just like that to make sure that the wires are nice and firm, they're straight, and they're all together. We're then going to get the male terminal. So that's just going to seat directly down inside there. Hopefully you guys can see. You want to push it in as far as it'll go. You're then going to grab yourself a set of long nose pliers, and we're going to crimp the end of it. So essentially, hopefully you can see, and I'll try to zoom in here. These tabs on either side, we want to be bending them over, and that's what's going to secure it inside the actual terminal itself. So put it in there, give it a twist and a squeeze, fold the next one over. Terrific. Give it a squeeze, excellent. Now we've got 2 more tabs at the back. So do the same thing again. There's probably a special tool for this. I'm sure someone can probably tell me how wrong I'm actually doing it. Once you've bent them over, give it a squeeze. Fantastic. All right, so now what we're going to do is grab the soldering iron, put this on the top of it. We're going to heat it up, and then we're going to melt some solder into there just to make it a more permanent connection. All right, so you got my trusty Ryobi soldering iron. So we're going to need that. While that heats up, we're going to grab the new solder, or solder as they call it in the States. It's one thing about having 2 toolboxes. While that heats up, I'm just going to go through and do the other terminal. So the other male one, fit inside here, follow the same process again. Once that stops flashing at the end, we're then going to apply the heat to it and then allow it to put the solder inside there. All right, so I've got my fan going at the moment because it is fairly warm inside here, in the shed that is. So what we're going to be doing is just heating up that terminal at the very end. So I'm just going to be holding it on here just for a little bit, just to apply a bit of heat. Once the terminal has gotten warm enough, we can then start feeding in the solder itself. So just got to make sure we can, oh, there we go. We can get in the right spot. So once the terminal has gotten to the same temperature in which the soldering iron is, essentially the solder will just work itself in there. There we go. Probably can't see. You don't need to pump it full of it. It just needs to have a little bit on there just to keep it a closed connection. Now, this does sound very obvious, but don't touch that. That is extremely hot. So if you compare these two, hopefully you can actually see. So that's the one we've just done, and that's the one we need to do. So you want to try and fill it as much as you can with solder to ensure that the terminal remains permanent. Now this one I probably should have pushed up a little bit further inside there, but it is going to do just fine because it does have a seal that sits on the outside of here. So repeat the same process and do the other terminals at the same time. All right, once you're satisfied with it, allow it to cool down, and then we're going to fit it inside the male terminal. Now the good thing about Deutsch connectors, it does have several seals. So there's an internal seal and there's an external seal. The external one is where the wires go through, and the internal one goes obviously on the inside. Well, do not drop that. Make sure those are nice and cool to touch. Fantastic. So in this case, we're not going to matter too much about which wire goes where, because we can just wire it to suit on the opposite side. That'll just push directly in all the way through to the terminal, and then it will lock itself in place once it's all the way through. Now it also does have a little lock tab as well inside there that enables it to prevent it coming out, and you can actually hear it audibly click when it goes in. Now they do have some terminals as well that you need to fit in there, or locking tabs should I say, to prevent it coming out. So there are two different sizes, of which I just thought I had the right one, but I clearly didn't. The smaller one is going to go in the larger unit. So that's just going to sit directly down inside there. It's going to be very hard for me to show you guys, but essentially it'll sit in there just like that. And then we're going to be pushing it down. I'll see if I can bring up a photo for you guys just so you can see. All right, so once you've done one end, we're then going to move on to doing the other. Now this is a repair or patch harness available from Minisport, which I've spoken about previously on an episode. Essentially, it does have a standard T10 wedge globe that'll go in here. So we've just cut that off, and we're just allowing a little bit of extra length to stick out through the sheath to protect it. And then we're going to be doing the exact same thing on the opposite side. So once again, strip them back, put the female terminals on, put it inside the plug. Before you reassemble it, you do need to make sure that this rubber grommet goes down inside there. Now the reason for that is it will protect and reduce any sort of water ingress in there. So I believe it sits over this one here, just like that. Sits over the end, and that just prevents anything getting in, but also anything getting out. So it remains nice and sealed inside there, and that'll just sit directly on there once it decides to play the game. There we go. So it just sits on the end of the terminal, just like that. And that way when you plug it in, it remains completely watertight in the middle and in both ends as well. Okay, so one thing that is important to make sure of is that when you're putting it together, you wire it correctly and that the pins line up with where they need to be. If you're unsure, refer to the wiring diagram and make sure that you get it set up the way it needs to be. Last thing you want to do is put it all together to find out everything works backwards. It doesn't work, there's power in wrong spots, you blow control units, relays, fuses, and you're just chasing your tail. So get this right to begin with, and then you can guarantee you're not going to have any problems down the road. Right, so now you can finally make the two parts together. So we put them in, make sure it's all lined up, give it a good push. There we go, audible, it's clicked in, give it the tug test, make sure it doesn't move, and then go on and do the same to the ends, as well as the other plug that we have. Righto, we've had a bit of a costume change because this car is the gift that keeps on giving. And by that it means I am just getting perplexed by the amount of work we have to do to this vehicle. And it's not to be unexpected, but you know, the amount of stuff that I have to do and find out where things go, it's just next level. I've had to put social media posts out there and ask people from all over the world to give me a hand with this because I've literally got no idea. And you know, with taking on a task like this, you just have to remember that sometimes you just have to ask for help, and there's nothing wrong with asking for help. So essentially we're up to, yesterday we ran all of the wiring inside. You can't really see because the lighting is pretty average, so I do apologise. We've got the heater boxes mounted, the heater, all the controls in the middle, the steering wheel controls, well not steering wheel, but the indicator, the wiper motor, and even the ignition switch all connected. We've pulled the wiring through the front here, as you can see up under there. Essentially what we want to be doing is running this wiring next, which goes to the wiring connection, if I can just find it. Yeah, so this one here. I have to work out whether it's going to run up on the inside of here and then across and out, whether it needs to come out through this hole here, but I can't work that out until we mount the wiper motor down there. The reason for that is if we run the wiring now and then we find out that the wiper motor sits in a particular spot where it's going to cover the wiring, it's going to restrict it, it's going to put pressure on it, we probably then need to pull it back out and redo it. So I've got the wiper motor mounts on order. This wiring here as well, that goes to a fuse box, which I believe is just over here. I just have stuff absolutely bloody everywhere at the moment. So this is what the customer has done. He's gotten this, I think, I don't know, that's a fuse box or something, maybe. Yeah, I assume it probably is. So he's marked everything, which is really good. He's gone through and written down where everything goes, as you can see, all over there. So we're gonna have to mount that, but I need to also work out where this mounts as well, excuse me, in the vehicle. And then we can work out backwards from there. So I imagine it's probably got to do with maybe one of these little holes here. Maybe there's another hole. Oh yeah, there's two there. So where my fingers are at the moment, there is two holes. Maybe it goes there, I don't actually know. I need to try and find out where that goes. I do have new bolts coming for this cover plate as well. We tried to reuse the old ones, but it didn't exactly work. The harness, I believe, runs out, down and around there, then up and over. Sorry, probably through that hole like it does normally. There's the earth point that we're all familiar with, and then runs down around through there, then across to the front. So yes, I am barefoot Billy at the moment because, you know, YOLO. We've got a relay plug here as well. So anyone that's got any sort of information on this, please let me know. Probably by the time you've seen this, I'm already well and truly knee deep in it. So there is quite a few things that we need to keep going with. I think today we'll finish this episode off because I've literally been on this for probably the past 4 to 5 days in between. So all those different scenes you've seen me in that green Minisport shirt has just been me working here. I've had Kev come and go a couple of days, which has been really nice. So thanks very much, mate. Essentially, I'll probably finish mounting this tonight, start running the wiring out and across, do the earth point as well. So as you can see, this one here. Now make sure as well when you're running earth points, it's always important to ensure that you've got multiple earth points, not just the one. One is good, but more is better. Simple as that. And then next episode, yeah, we can keep moving on. So let's keep running this wiring. I'm not really going to sit here and talk about absolutely everything that I'm doing. I'm just going to do a time lapse on it. I just think it's better. If you guys want to see that, please let me know, but I just don't want to sit here and bore you with, you know, running this wire across here and then mounting it and then doing it. You'll see me how I do it, and then we can come back to it later if need be. And then just stuff like this as well. So we've gone and remarked that, so that says wipers. I've swapped that over as well from the original one. The original harness we had come through here, which I spoke about earlier, but it obviously doesn't. That's where the two AC lines come through, so we'll just worry about that later. I'm going to start working on all this. I think there's a couple of fuses that need to go in here as well, so I'll get the old one. Once the wiring's done, or up to here anyway, where we're going to get it mounted, we are then going to move on and mount the wipers, and then start testing everything. I think that's probably going to be the next thing, but yeah, let's just keep cracking along and just get this thing bloody finished.